All right, we're kicking things off with our good friend Vicki McKenna and the very popular Culture Cast segment. Vicki, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
The camo's back. My whole world makes sense.
It's not camo.
Isn't it?
It's OD green.
Oh, well,
it's just
okay.
OD green.
I was going to say, my world makes sense again.
So, I wish we could just talk about fashion.
Wouldn't that be nice?
We're going to get into today.
We got some creepy stories for you today, starting with, we shouldn't be surprised, right? A Texas teacher is now claiming that 20 of her fourth graders out of 32 identify as LGBTQ. Now, this is some kind of a revelation, right? See, all this progressivism, and now the vast majority of our kids are really LGBTQ, and we didn't know it till now. How do you make this? We knew this was coming.
First off, you knew it was coming. Secondly, if there was any doubt that kids are being groomed into very radical and deviant sexuality at ever younger ages, here it is. You got a teacher, you got a radical activist teacher who is encouraging her students in her class to declare themselves alt-sexual in some way. And when you're in fourth grade, that's 9 and 10 years old. 9 and 10 years old. They have no idea what they're talking about. They are being encouraged by their teacher, and they are acceding to their teacher's wishes because they seek approval of an adult, because that's what 9 and 10-year-olds do. This is insidious. It is widespread. Lest anyone think that this is not in their school. It's in your school. It just is. What I can't believe, Duke, is that there is not a nation of parents acting almost as an army, storming into these classrooms to put an end to this, because your kids are the ones that are being warped, and your kids are the ones that are coming out of this with gender confusion and potentially mental illness. And hopefully not, but perhaps suicidal ideation, which we actually have as a situation in a Wisconsin school. So I'm not surprised, but I'm disgusted. I'm even more disgusted because the left fears nothing. Parents have been showing up at school board meetings. What is their reaction? Hey, let's radicalize more kids and make a declaration during Pride Week that 80% of a fourth grade classroom somehow understands, let alone declares themselves to be deviant sexuals.
And I think you hit on something very, very important, that the progressive left is manipulating, not educating. You could teach these kids anything, starting at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. If you start telling children from the time they show up in kindergarten that to be different is special, to be not just heterosexuality, it's discriminatory. Think about all the sexual avenues of love. Sex is love, right? Even though we're going to teach you all about anal intercourse and how to use lube, all the sex is love, understand that. And how can you
that doesn't really scream love, does it?
Do you not love your daddy as much as you love your mommy? Why couldn't you love all people? And so you're exactly right.
That's a good point, because if you were equating sex with love, and why don't you love your teacher? Don't you love this counselor? It's part of this process of grooming kids to be comfortable with deviant sexuality and to have themselves experience this type of sexuality as well. What's next? And I'll tell you what's next is reducing the age of consent. That's next. Your kids are being properly groomed so that when everybody goes California and the age of consent is reduced to 13 or 12 or whatever it is, your kids will be ready. Your kids will be prepared to engage in child-adult sexual activity, and they will claim it's consensual, just like they claim it's consensual when an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old gets gender-altering therapy in the form of hormones or counseling that recommends surgery. So it's coming, folks. The idea that somehow, well, if I just go to a school board meeting or we, elect a couple of extra people on the school board, this will change. It won't. This is the last and greatest battleground that the left is going to engage. Everything else that they have done has failed. So far, they've been winning when it comes to education.
You are not going about the business of sexualizing, literally sexually licensing children as young as 6 and 7. You do not do that and then turn around and tell those kids, oh, but all the sexual feelings we've taught you, all the sexual arguments we've made on your behalf, don't worry about that for another 10 years. It doesn't work that way. And we actually have a quote from the teacher. Quote, here it is. I feel that it is inappropriate to call our parade this morning a wellness walk, right? So the school tried to cover up the name of their pride parade by calling it a wellness walk to avoid parent flack. And so the teacher says, I feel that it's inappropriate to call our parade this morning a wellness walk at all. While I understand that wellness walk is something that was previously in motion to promote health and fitness and is something we want to continue, it really takes away from the experience of celebrating pride to couple the two. The first pride was a riot. It is not enough to just welcome, love, and celebrate. Queer foix, F-O-I-X, I'm not even sure how you pronounce that. Your allyship should always lead you to activism, speaking up and fighting for what is right, even when it feels uncomfortable. We can't choose in and out of our protest spaces.
Remember what we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, when parents were told in the Eau Claire schools they have to earn information about their children. Your children are not your children. Your children are our children. You had the Ozaukee Democrats in the state of Wisconsin essentially declare that in an education manifesto. So again, I don't know why anybody thinks that they are going to be able to escape this, why they think their school is just going to be the one in the entire country that's different. It isn't. Get your kids out of these public schools.
I was in Eau Claire yesterday doing a talk, and we had 250 people there in that room. Parents are starting to pay attention. Before I go, let me show you the last part of that quote that we didn't read. This is the teacher. Out of the 32 students that I teach, 20 of them are LGBTQIA+, and they have come out to me. Notice that. They've come out to her. Not to the class, not to the teachers, and not to the schools. I feel
not that the parents.
I feel that we need to do better for them to affirm our students. I think it would only be appropriate and right to publicly announce that we had this morning a pride parade. Our students are aware and they are paying attention.
They are 9 years old, and she is a pedosexual. That's my new word for these people. You are pedosexuals. You are freaks who want to encourage children to engage in deviant sexual activity that will harm them throughout their entire lives. It is disgusting. It is sick. It is demonic. It is purely demonic. And I mean, honestly, protect your children. If your children are exposed to this kind of thing, get your kids out of those schools ASAP. And get to church.
So appropriate that you brought up the pedosexual, because after the break here, we're going to talk about a creepy, creepy fella who was a teacher and is now running for school board. All right, back with Vicki McKenna for CultureCast. Vicki, we're talking about a word that you coined called pedosexuals. And a pedosexual is somebody who's using all of this new current buzzwords and social justice enlightenment to really just groom kids for their own sexual pleasure. Speaking of the creepiest, talk about this fella from Kenosha, Wisconsin, former teacher, God help us, who now is preparing to, I think, run for a school board, and his very interesting personal media pages.
So if anyone wants to see this, and Duke, I'm not sure if you could provide a link. This was a story that was produced at KenoshaCountyEye.com, and it is about one Samuel Ruchnick. I'm not sure if you have a picture of him. He looks like a creepy perv. When you look like a creepy perv, I'm not sure what we can actually say on this podcast, but this is a guy who's posted multiple Facebook posts about his enthusiasm for incredibly deviant sexuality, his enthusiasm for the Communist Manifesto, and his wholehearted endorsement of prostitution and other types of sex work. He is running for the school board in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He is likely to win. He has the endorsement of the who's who of the labor union left, the endorsement of the teachers union, the endorsement of most of the well-known Democrats in the area. And this is a guy who says he wants to bring his perspective to the school board. If I may just read a statement, sex work is real work, and it's good work. And it should be respected as much as any other profession. So I stand by strippers and cam girls and guys and prostitutes and openly sexual people of all ages, races, status. Without these people doing what they do, the world could be more sexually aggressive than it already is. Be glad there are people out there doing this work. It's harder than you think and more good than you know. #sex work is real work.
So,
I mean, this is a guy who's cruising for hookers in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and this is a selling point.
for a guy who's complaining about sexual aggression that needs to be taken off, he has some pretty interesting dietary requirements. You
Can we say it?
Yes.
I mean, we can say it. I'll say it. I mean,
We can say it.
This is something that's supposed to be a selling point for a man to be I guess he's a man. I don't know, Duke. I'm not a biologist, but he think he's a man. He puts a post up that says on the health benefits of ingesting vaginal bacteria.
Yep.
I'm just going to stop there because you can fill in the blanks.
I'll pick up that ball. I'll be glad to do that. So here's a guy now whose entire premise is in this social media post that he is a connoisseur of vaginal bacteria and that ingesting it orally is some kind of weird probiotic for him. This is the guy now do you wonder now why he stands up for and stands by sex workers?
No, you can't wonder at all once you see this. He's also an enthusiastic endorser of Drag Queen's Story Hour. He doesn't have any problems with the Communist Manifesto, thinks it's an interesting read and some really good ideas contained there that we should take a look at. And it's just not fair to dismiss it out of hand. Again, he's endorsed by all of the who's who of the left. The Wisconsin Progress, Working Families Parties, Senator Bob Wirtz, who you got one of the old school Democrats, all of the unions, including the teachers union, the AFL-CIO, the IBEW. I'm not sure what electricians have, why they have, some kind of, dog in this race here, but apparently they decided to throw in for this guy as well. His posts are disgusting. They're pornographic. They're vile. They're sort of stomach, churning. When you look at them, he is someone who likes to pose in particular poses that kind of make you want to crawl out of your skin. But you know what? I was told by people who live in Kenosha, he has a very good chance of winning this race unless people learn about him and rally candidates against him. And that's unlikely because the elections are so soon.
The way he talks about the benefits of ingesting aspects of female biology makes me think that it puts the lotion on or it gets the hose. All right? I mean, that's the kind of Buffalo Bob in a school board. All right, Vicki.
Well, he was a teacher too, so I wonder how many kids were already exposed to this kind of material and this kind of creepy thinking. Man, this is again, they're not ashamed. The Democrats aren't ashamed to endorse him. If a Republican had done this, if a conservative or a moderate had done this, and this made the news, that person would have been forced to withdraw. All of the endorsements would have disappeared in a second. No self-respecting conservative would have ever gone to the polls and voted for someone like this. But when it's a Democrat, this is, these are features, not bugs.
Yeah, and I have to say this, as unpleasant as it can be, there is no
pedosexuals.
There is no
use the word
podcast in the world that brings you this kind of information and gives you the kind of coverage of it that we do. It's not easy for us to talk about this stuff. So
it was pretty actually, and we're in our 50s.
Yeah,
this was difficult.
Oh, I mean,
and these people are actually comfortable, I guess, expressing this kind of material to young children.
That's right, and so we try to make this fun and lighthearted, but the information is what you need. This is where the culture is heading very rapidly. So
get your kids out of these schools.
Get your kids out right away. Thank you for your time today, Vicki McKenna. Another really interesting Culture Cast.